The service. It was 1992. I was a recruit. My life was just beginning in the armed forces. The good thing about a military career is that your superiors will guide you to your next mission. You don't have to figure it all out as long as you do your job. Your assignment, for however long you have it, is your job, and then it's on to the next gig. I always wanted to be in the military. The mission orientation appealed to me. I figured I'd never had a boring job as long as I focused on the mission. Even if I played a minor role, together we could accomplish anything. After basic training, you're on to your first assignment. My superiors decided I would perform well on the ground as a tactical soldier. They give you a gun and you walk around. Protect those people and things around you as they are being moved around the game board. I wasn't the tallest guy, but I was the toughest. I was strong. I worked hard at building my physique. Me and my fellow soldiers did push-ups in every way imaginable, with people sitting on my back with one arm with a leg up. I figured, the stronger you are, the more likely you are to survive. The armed forces do a good job of building an image. They strip away every weakness until you're tough enough to do the job they assign to you. Your identity is gone. You're a soldier with orders. Of course, I look back at it now and realize how little all of that means, because they fill your mind with so much training that, when on the battlefield, you're stuck with doing your orders, even if your intuition tells you something else. You're not at a high enough rank to decide to take another route or do something else if your gut tells you so. If they tell you to go from point A to point B, then damn it, you go from point A to point B. That's how it got me. They stationed me in the States for nearly half of my military career. Then, I hopped from base to base doing logistics. Most of the military's activities are logistics. Moving people, moving things, moving weapons, moving information. It's all movement. I made many friends in the military. It was my life. I enjoyed every minute from dawn until dusk. The military provides a camaraderie that some civilians just don't understand. The feeling is like a church, where everyone works together to keep the community healthy and safe and employed. Not everyone agrees or has the same experience, but that was my experience. I could have fulfilled my entire career in the military if given the chance. The news came that I was being activated. Our mission was a peacekeeping mission in Bosnia. Rebels there were making life hell for the people there, and it was our job to help keep them safe. I felt like an action hero saving the day. When our platoon arrived, we enjoyed the sights. We visited beautiful places. I remember standing on the edge of Bosnia overlooking the sea. Standing on a cliff, it felt like my world was really opening up. I spent most of my time alone during this trip, with my superiors and peers standing around or taking photos of something or another. I didn't feel the need to take photos. I would keep these experiences in my mind forever and take myself back there if I found myself in a warehouse, stamping inventory sheets, or standing guard at an entryway. The months went by in Bosnia. I spent most of my days walking around vast stretches of terrain next to an armored tactical vehicle. My boots hadn't been replaced in months, so my heels were aching and the discomfort wound its way up to my lower back. I didn't realize that it wasn't the boots that were causing the sensation, but it was my body's inner guidance system trying to warn me of what was coming. We had no armed conflict. Much of the job was standing, sweating, walking, talking, and patrolling. We were just keeping an eye out. I can't tell you anything more than that because, in the bigger picture, I didn't really know why I was there. I was on a mission, and I was told exactly what I needed to know to fulfill it, and I accepted that. One day, we left our base in the early morning just as the sun was rising. I always enjoyed how cool it was in the morning during those spring to summer months. The day began like any other. Freshly showered and on our vehicle, we headed towards an outpost in the northeast quadrant of our patrol area. From there, we began our patrol on foot next to the vehicle to see if there were any rebels making their way through with weapons. We walked for a couple of hours. There were 4 of us on patrol that day, as there usually were groups from 4 to 12. My hiking pack was in the patrol vehicle. I decided to walk without it that day and just carry my rifle tucked under my right arm. Looking back, I wish I had worn it. It might have done me a bit of good. We were walking just under a ridge where the sun couldn't get us. Our goal was to make it around the corner of the ridge and keep patrolling. To my right, a steep cliff, and straight ahead and to the left, a stretch of terrain to survey. That was the last thing I saw. I took my last steps and then felt a blast from behind. My patrol partner stepped on an IED, a landmine for short. He died on the spot. I heard loud, frightening screaming from the driver. I was so shocked that I didn't feel any emotion. All I could remember was losing a connection with the world around me. It blew me up from behind. Everything went quiet and still. I was alone in my thoughts. It was like I was in a dark room, and my thoughts were things that surrounded me. They echoed what I observed. From there, I could grasp what was happening. Then I heard other distinct voices. They were the voices of people around me. I was still alive from what I gathered. They were medevacing me out of there. I heard a voice of a woman taking care of me. They acted as if there was a chance for me to survive. It was as if I was standing in a dark, safe room while all of this was happening. I didn't feel any sensation, but I was aware of the fear the woman and the surrounding men had in their hearts. I could feel their emotions, their adrenaline rushing, the fright in them. As if they were saving themselves on that operating table, I felt them clinging to hope to save me. They needed blood, but they didn't have enough. They were unprepared for this occasion. The consensus was, if I had worn my pack, it would have buffered me from the shrapnel that severed the arteries in my back. It would have reduced my blood loss. In short, I made a big mistake. The hope inside my medics dwindled. They hoped I would somehow miraculously improve, but there was no going back. I faced a choice inside that dark room. Go back into my body, be discharged from the military, and live my life in a wheelchair, or start over with a new life. I didn't make an instant decision. I had to feel within the core of me what I wanted to do. Nobody was going to make that decision for me. It was as if either way was the right decision. It depended on what I thought I wanted most. I decided to start over. I knew what that would do to my family, and especially my parents. The shock and grief for me leaving them was something they never thought they'd have to do. Their prayers for my safety were just some thoughts I could hear in that dark room. I was safe where I was, just not in the way they had hoped. My body grew cold and stiff once I had made my decision. The medics around me felt as if they had failed. The woman who took care of me leaned her back on the stainless steel table where my body lay and wept. She didn't even know me, but it was as if she had thrown all of her love and power into me, only for me to not survive. I wish I could have consoled her and told her she had done her job, that I felt her love and care, and that her job wasn't just to save lives, but to transition souls with dignity. They put me in a box and prepared me to go home. I didn't know how to get myself back to my family in the States, so I followed my body until it made it home. My comrades, a couple of them I had known, loaded me with honors into a large cargo plane. I wanted to say hi to them, but I couldn't reach the divide between where I was and where they were. On this trip, I took on a passive role. For the entire flight, I stayed with my body in the casket and the casket of my friend, who died in the blast. The pilots were having a conversation in the cockpit. They didn't admit they were uneasy about bringing lifeless bodies back home, but I could hear their thoughts about the situation and feel the tightness in their stomachs as they tried to process the grim reality of military casualties. I guess we all like to think we'll make it home alive, but we forget the contract we signed, risking our lives for the job. Our plane stopped on a base in Texas. That's where my body and the body of my friend went separate ways. A young black man loaded his body onto another plane. It was about that time that the government informed my family of my death. I could feel home getting closer and closer. I could hear in the young man's mind that at that moment that he wanted out of the military. He was afraid that he would die like me. I couldn't blame him, but I wanted him to know that my death was not a natural consequence of military service. It was a consequence of war. But I had to keep going. I finally made it home. My family didn't know what to do with me. They bereaved and depended on the military to arrange my burial in a military cemetery. They wanted to be buried with me in a family plot, but they felt that this was the way for me to go, the traditional route of a man of service. I didn't think of myself as a man of service, but that's how they saw me. I realized that I would have been a man of service no matter what I did, but the military was how I went about it. My mom, with her short, brown wavy hair, held tissues to her face for most of the time that I stayed with her. She didn't understand why I, out of everybody, could die that day. She asked a million questions that seemed to go unanswered. I wish I could have told her that the answers were simple and that there weren't that many questions to ask. I died protecting people. I wanted to say. I stood between them and harm. That's what I stood up for, in a world of people who want to hurt innocent people on a war path towards getting what they want. I can't believe that I lived in a world like that, but there are some people who believe they have to create mayhem and destruction to build a utopia. It's maddening. My dad held in all of his anger, but at the core of it was a deep sadness. He knew on one hand he prepared me as a scout to do that job they assigned me to do, but I think he realized it did not prepare him to lose me. He was angry at himself for not being prepared. A good scout is always prepared. My sisters clung to each other. They took it better than most. They were proud of me and what I did. While they didn't understand the bigger picture of military life and the role it played in American life, they honored the individual sacrifices military servicemen and women make, and the sacrifices people like them made to share them with the country. It made them angry that people didn't understand that. I see now how it drives political conflict. There was a funeral. All of my friends and family made it that day. It was a sunny day. There was a salute, a passing of the flag, and a headstone with my name on it. I watched all of this from above. I stayed with my family as they mourned and cried. As long as they mentally clung to me, I remained. They didn't know that, as they cling to me, they bring me to them. Between their real time and my memories, I drifted. I watched every memory of my family from growing up. I watched myself relive every experience. It was the perfect American life. Camping, ghost stories, slumber parties, pool parties, barbecues, family celebrations, all those moments that string along the mundane life of us going to work, grocery shopping, and schoolwork. All of those moments, I realize, were tiny celebrations of love. They expressed how much my parents loved me, how they were grateful to share their lives with me, and how they wished we could always be together and never part. All the while, my parents prayed for us and looked out for us, preparing us for a life without them. They never wanted to acknowledge the possibility of a life without us. I grew up as a Boy Scout, first a Cub Scout and then a Boy Scout. Scouting was an immersive experience that prepared me for life and service. I saw myself walking along the forest trails with my friends and my dad, and saw my smiles. A good scout leaves their trails clean. I never understood why the men who buried those IEDs felt it necessary to leave a trail of destruction. Eventually, I felt my family learning how to live without me in their lives. While I was in the service, my family could feel me out in the world, and that connection sustained them until our next reunion. They were learning to adjust their minds and accept that I was in another world, heaven. They called it that and believed that we would reunite there. When I felt they were in a better place, a lighter place, I felt I could leave them. I still visit them from time to time, but my mind wanders elsewhere. My mind goes back to Bosnia, but I watch it as I fly the skies above. My mind goes to different places where my curiosity takes me. I have learned to love the world from a unique vantage point. I go to people who can see me and feel me, and I tell them my story. Eventually, I'll come back and live a new life, but the world isn't ready for me yet. The world has some growing to do until we can get to a place where killing people isn't a natural solution to conflict. I'll come back when better ideals replace the thoughts of yesterday. I want to tell my story to the young men and women who are thinking about joining any military service. It's called service for a reason. The service is not called military capitalism, nor is it called a military mercenary. The men and women who serve have to strive for freedom, not just our own as a nation, but the ideals of freedom far and wide. Even if we don't agree, profit, or enjoy the rights of others, it's a service dedicated to keeping the peace. Soldiers are not instruments of destruction. Soldiers don't carry a rifle to use it. We carry it to acknowledge that there are others who believe they need to use it to get their point across, but it's the last thing we should ever feel compelled to use. Because we're not defending our lives or our boundaries. We're defending ideals of freedom, democracy, and individual expression. Nobody has a stranglehold, a trademark or copyright over these truths. Nobody in our elected official buildings and nobody using terror to enrich themselves. I didn't die for my country. I died while preserving these ideals on this planet. I may not have known it then, but I know it now. Everything I learned about service, I learned from my parents. They did their jobs, and I did mine. The medic did hers. Our jobs on Earth are not the tasks assigned for us that day, nor the mission we must endure to fulfill a goal. Our jobs are to pour every ounce of our being into everything we do, with and for others who cross our paths. When we do that, it's a job well done, even if we think we failed.